It's the SDG Podcast. Before we get started, you can check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com/podcast or find us on all the social medias, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Solution Design Group. All right. Well, let's, I guess, go around the horn, introduce ourselves, and then we'll get going on whatever it is we're going to talk about.
Hi, I'm Els Tahura.
Hi, I'm Chad Jetner.
Hello, I'm Peter Lawrence.
And I'm Kyle Bacher, and today we're going to talk about finishing strong.
Finishing everything strong? What are we finishing strong?
Finishing a project, a piece of work, whatever.
Disease,
Yeah.
You do
Finishing,
what the goal is.
It's that
Client
final
engagement.
push that, so here's my favorite analogy, because I used to wait tables, is you greet the table and take their orders and do all the things right, check back, keep their beverages full, make them laugh, give them awesome service. They're digging you. You're having a great time. And then you go, what I call it, the server Houdini. Then you just vanish. You're in the back doing side work. You're out back smoking. And they're sitting at their table, like wondering where the check is, craning their neck, trying to flag people down.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're hanging out longer and their drinks get empty because you want the table to turn over. But basically, you leave them hanging at the end. And then you drop the check off. And then your tip is not that great. And it should be no mystery. So it's kind of about making a last impression. It's about sticking it out till the end. Because you can get to a point in a project where you can let up on the gas. It's like the emergencies aren't there and things are going and stuff. And it's like, yeah, you don't want to let up on the gas too soon.
Right. Just because you got it pushed to production doesn't mean that there are no bugs or nothing else to do. Right.
Yeah.
I've never finished anything, so I'm mostly going to be listening.
Take notes, Chad. We got this.
Actively. That's what I'm doing. Is I'm actively taking a lot of notes here. Not a big finisher.
You're the starter. Yeah, you start the things. Don't finish them.
So the idea is when you're finishing up with a client to leave good documentation, leave a good contact information, et cetera, and all of those things as you're walking out the door. When does finishing start?
I think finishing starts when you go, oh crud, that deadline is looming. We got to get this done. Yeah. When does finishing start? It's a continuum. I don't know if you can point at any one thing, but it's you feel it though. You don't want to celebrate too early. But you kind of know that, hey, we're down to the last couple weeks. We're getting down to the wire. I always looked at it like my job with a customer was to put myself out of a job. So I need to leave them with something good that does what they wanted it to do, that they can work with, that they can maintain to a degree, that leaving them with a solution, not a problem. And then when you walk out the door, just leave them with the knowledge that you can still email me. You can still reach out to me if there's something we missed or something like that. A little service after the sale, I think, is nice too.
Yeah, I think we've talked on earlier episodes about one of the benefits and challenges, depending on how you look at it, of doing consulting is that you get a lot of practice with onboarding, with basically starting a new job. But the reverse is totally true as well. That, are like Kyle, like you said, the goal of our jobs is to become irrelevant at our client, at least.
Yeah.
And so we maybe have more practice at, okay, how do I roll off a project or a team or a company, than people who've just worked in, I guess I'll say, like typical full-time jobs have.
Right.
So that experience has taught me that at minimum, like your notice period, that's for sure, that is a finishing time period. It's not
Right.
your last day. It's at minimum the notice that you're given. But as you're working, even if you aren't, you don't have a roll-off date in sight, I've learned to keep in mind, at some point, I'm going to want to do something different, even if it's on the same team at this same company. So
Right.
how do I set this up so that it can be easily transferred to others? Like we've talked about how a strategy of job security is keeping all the secrets to yourself so that you're the only one who understands how something works.
That's right. Dragon Horde methodology.
Yeah, of course, the reverse of, or what that means is, okay, you're going to have to support this application forever. You're going to get called on vacation when something breaks and no one knows
Yep.
how to fix it. And so the more you can kind of remember in your head that, okay, I don't want this project, this task to be my problem forever, and neither does my boss.
Right.
That there are things you can do to help document that, to do knowledge transfer, to work, like collaborate with your teammates to help make the official finishing process a lot easier.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because
I
sometimes
will-
go ahead.
I want to note this for Chad, because I normally get mad at myself at the end of a gig that I didn't think of this earlier on. And that is, like, you should do really excellent documentation all the way through so that you don't have to do really excellent documentation at the end when you're trying to finish things up.
Yeah.
It's never too late to start, Chad. That's the other thing.
I hear your words, Peter. I
He
hear
just
what you're
rejects
saying.
them outright.
I see you, but yeah. No, it's one of my resolutions. I do have to start taking, maybe not documented, but I need to take better notes a lot. I do hold a ton of stuff in my head, and writing things down early, especially when you don't understand them, and going back and refining is probably a thing I could absolutely be doing better on, and it would probably service the topic of this episode a little bit better too, like finishing strong with, like well-refined notes, well-refined documentation, true and accurate documentation, as opposed to what you start with at the beginning of a project, which is a bunch of guesses, right? That may or may not be right.
Hearsay and innuendo, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I will listen to you, Peter, a little bit.
It's one of those, like I said, I always get mad at past self for not doing a better job for future self when it's at the end, and it's like, I could have done this the whole time.
Yeah, I think like there's finishing strong in terms of a project. There's finishing strong in terms of the things you're doing during the project. There's finishing strong when you're handing off. It's not done yet, but to me, a strong finish is that the next person is ready to jump in. There's finishing strong in terms of knowledge transfer to the people you're leaving behind. If they can't find the documentation, if they don't know the passwords to get into the system, then I'm getting reached out to 5 years after something was built and saying they can't get into the code because they don't have their credentials, because all of their IT people left and they have all new IT people.
But like, honestly, we can stay at clients forever, right? Taking on multiple roles, multiple projects. And if you don't do kind of what we're talking about right now, if you don't finish one thing strong, if you don't put a bow on it, you might end up being kind of miserable, right? Like carrying the load of like 4 to 5 different projects along with you if you stay at a given, given client, given organization, right? And I think that would be kind of a miserable existence for somebody like us, right? Like you don't want to not tie things in a nice tidy little bow and carry the baggage of one assignment with you into the next, and then have to, support one thing while you're also trying to onboard on a new thing. So it behooves you to listen to Professor Lawrence here and write things down, hand it off well, have a run book, have an FAQ, have all of that stuff handy for whoever comes after you. Have well-established patterns. As developers, we want to write code in a way that's supportable and maintainable. Well, gosh darn it, please God, have that stuff, have those patterns identified, have them documented, highlight a few of them, right? Those are all great examples of how you can finish something really, really well. Like, hey, you want to know how how are we implementing OAuth? Well, here's how we're doing that. Highlight that stuff in code, and then talk about all of the bad stuff too, right? Like, here's things that keep tripping us up. This integration fails every single night, and here's all the reasons why, right?
Yep.
We've done what we can. Good luck, sir.
Yeah, maybe part of the solution is kind of a kludgy workaround because of the capabilities and how far you got, where you realize that, okay, this is going to have to work like this, but this might cause issues in the future. So keep an eye on this. I think that the last impression you make with a customer or a project team or whoever is just as important as the first impression, if not more.
Agreed.
That sets the stage for the next thing. Maybe they need you to come back. Maybe they want you to do more. And if you leave them hanging, you use the scorched earth approach. You're doing the Michael Bay when you're walking away, that slow walk away, and there's an explosion behind you. That's what you don't want.
Or even like maybe, Kyle, random example, like maybe you think you're leaving something for something better, right? And you want to leave the door open for a given company to invite you back with open arms soon. Like, hey, go off, have your adventure, try it out. And maybe you want to come back to that company, right? And maybe you're going to miss what you had.
Absolutely.
Maybe this anecdote has, nothing to do with, what.
Purely hypothetical. No,
Really
but
having left and come back, I
think there are two, you absolutely don't want to burn bridges unless it's really worth burning that bridge, it's a very
cathartic.
Yeah.
It could be incredibly cathartic.
That's a very small subset of circumstances, I would argue. You also, you don't realize how small the pool of talent is in your local area until you go work somewhere else and you run into a past coworker, or you have an applicant to your new job that is coming from your old company, or you don't know what's coming in the future. So it's just a good idea to leave well. I would also add, it's really important to leave well, because if you want to keep, a good reputation, keep those strong relationships, you're leaving your project, your client, your employer feeling comfortable with what they need to keep going with, but also that there is that safety net if something bursts into flames and no one can figure it out, they can reach out and take 5-10 minutes of your time to answer question. Like that never hurts. You're just it's helping the team that you're leaving also feel more safe, that not that they're necessarily going to contact you, but just that they know they have the option. That can sometimes make it easier for them as well.
Yeah, I've had both. I've had companies contact me, up to even a year later and ask questions about, like, do you remember this one piece of code here?
Yeah.
Like, no, but why don't you show it to me and maybe something will come back? Or, there's other times where you're gone and I did run into somebody this morning in a meeting that I'd worked at the same place, 6 or 7 years ago. I as a consultant, they as a full-timer. So it's fun to have that. And it is a small organization. One thing I was wondering about, Al, like in your sort of the databasey world, it's not exactly project to project. It's more like continuous database things forever, right?
Sure. It's kind of a mix of both. But did you have a question? Otherwise I can.
So how do you end something when it's not ending? How do you finish strong something that's not, like, you're going to go away and it's not done? It's not,
you're like, your career, Al, is kind of a Mobius strip, right? Like it folds in on itself and it comes back and you just travel it and you're back at the start again.
Yeah. The infinite loop.
With the things that don't end, like ongoing monitoring, or here are common requests that come through that might come through within the context of specific projects, but are ultimately project agnostic. I do a ton of documentation. I try to keep that up throughout my time working wherever I'm working. But I think there are a couple of other things I do. So I'll do either in-person or video call conversations to talk through things. I'll encourage those get recorded in some way so that there's something that they can go back to. And I tend to prioritize the talking about the context around which something might happen and my approach to solving it, because I'm never going to be able to tell someone, here's how you debug every problem you're going to encounter. But if I provide, documentation that walks through some examples, what I'll also do is I'll look for either past features or bug tickets that I worked on and just save those off and send them to the person and say, here, you can see the email thread. Here are the people I talked to. Here's where I attached like a SQL query that I ran, so that they have an example to work from, to help give them a pattern of steps to follow, even if it isn't exactly the steps that they need. I'll do that as well.
Sure.
And if, all things being equal, I'll have some time where I know I'll be wrapping up on a project or wrapping up on a client. I will, as best I can, I want to use all of that time for transfer. Like as soon as I know this is coming up in a couple weeks, my end is coming up in a couple weeks, we're starting transferring things immediately. The idea of saving everything until the last day is just asking for trouble.
Oh yeah.
They were sick that day.
Yeah. So I try to take that time and start to, okay, stuff is still coming in that I'm having to monitor, that I'm having to work on. Cool. Chad, you're going to be the person that's taken over for me. You're going to start doing that work. We're going to do that together. We're going to basically do pair database programming.
Hey, quick question, because I zoned out for a second. Did I just get signed up for something?
Yeah.
Okay.
I hope you've been doing architecture for a while. You can be a DBA.
That's right. It's practically the same.
Yeah.
have you ever had a horrible offboarding experience that we can talk about right now? Like, I like to learn. So I like to learn how to do something well by watching examples of people doing it just ridiculously bad, and then saying, "Hey, that's my low bar. Like, as long as I don't do that, I'll be not as bad as that guy, right?" So, what is an example, Elle or Peter or Kyle, of like the worst case scenario?
I will say, one of the worst case scenarios is when a person leaves a company, did not write anything down, and they take their code or their documents with them and delete them from shared drives.
That is a real thing that's happened.
Yep.
I've seen people use their own like Visual Studio Pro account in a production system for a customer.
Man.
And then have it expire and their stuff stops working. The data integration stops working. I've seen that happen. Like leaving, I think leaving before you even get a chance to finish, like that early cutoff where
it's just
you just get airlifted out. That Skynet plane from the CIA comes in, grabs Batman on a wire and takes him out. Sometimes that happens, and that's unfortunate. When it's leaving stuff that's not done is not cool.
Have you ever had it where, like, all right, you're about to offboard, right? You're about to do something else, and you want to finish well, you want to leave a good impression, but then all of a sudden, like, wherever you're leaving, they didn't realize like everything you're doing, right? Like you had other roles, you had other things, and you start listing them, and they're like, "Oh, I thought you were, just doing this."
Quietly programming in the corner.
Yeah, and then oh God, that sort of situation. I've had it happen to me once or twice, and that might be a little bit on me for not being, for just quietly taking care of things because it's easy. Don't do that. It's it's very hard for folks to backfill a role when they don't have any context for that, what all that role entails,
Right.
And I think part of that, there is absolutely the very important component of, yes, you have other programming work that you're doing. But I think that also brings up the importance of transferring like the communication patterns to other team members. So if I'm doing secret project X and I've been working with Peter on that at a client, and I'm leaving but Peter's staying, Peter needs somebody to talk to, because the hope is that even if I leave, the rest of the team still can function and has a good reputation, more important, like outside of the team itself. So just, I think that's another component where it's just, okay, here are the people I talk to. Here's a list. I'm going to send it to you. I'm going to tell them, moving forward, please reach out to our shared team email address to help make it more of a team persona than an individual.
Another challenge I've seen is when somebody who, is working sort of they've given 2 weeks notice and they're on their way out, but they had this one really big thing that they were working on, right? And the updates and the status meetings were like, yep, going to be done on my last day. Pretty sure.
Yep.
I've got it almost done. It's so close. And then you're in that last 2 to 3 hours of the day on the last Friday, and they're telling you all the things that are left to do on this really big thing, and you're like, what did you do? Why? Where?
I've had this exact same thing happen. This is more than a decade ago, but had a fellow leave, and that exact thing happened, right? Like, we're a huge project, right? Very large, strategic customer, and the fellow's like, "Yep, on board." Like all last 3 months, right?
Right.
On board.
Green light.
Everything's going well.
Yep.
You know, things are, and then like we get a 2-week notice, and then we find, oh my God, and then the fellow just kind of goes dark. That was horrible. That was terrifying. I hope I never have to live through anything like that ever again in my life.
And it would be better to know that they're not going to get it done 2 weeks at the first. I'm giving you my notice. Yeah. By the way, I was wrong. I'm way behind on this.
And that's where, like, yes, the onus is partly on the developer to, like, please don't do that. Just don't understand and come to terms with the fact that you're not going to be able to get everything done you want to get done.
Right.
But it is also on, I would argue, there's also a responsibility on the manager's part to just say, okay, you can work on it. We're going with the assumption that you're not going to finish it. So by, 11 a.m. on your last day, I want your code checked into a branch. Yep. Just like... Yep. I just need to know that we have a stopping point and we will pick up from there.
And where I want to see it checked in now, wherever it is now, so we can start looking at it and going, these are the things that we think you won't get done. So let's clearly understand what your thinking is for this part.
Yes.
Right. Yeah. When you hand off to the customer, when you're walking out the door, and you need to hand them everything. It's all their stuff. It's all their work, their proprietary stuff. That needs to stay with the customer. There needs to be a clean handoff. All the accounts, all the access, the things they need needs to be their people, and that clean break needs to happen. You carry nothing with you.
That's another good piece of advice, is never get access that you shouldn't have.
Right.
No matter how nice it would be to have, this production access or that production access. It's like, nope, I don't want it, because I'll just get lazy and then I'll do something. And then if I walk out, it goes with me. So
yeah, all the AWS SES messages, they've been going to me for the past year and I just auto forwarded them to the rest of the team. No.
Yeah.
No.
That forwarding rule is not going to work when the account goes away.
Yeah. One question that I have, I guess, Kyle, I'll ask you. A fairly regular component of rolling off, of finishing, is an exit interview. How do you have to balance, I'm phrasing a question as I've already asked a question in my head.
Do you have exit interviews when you leave clients?
Sometimes.
Have you had those?
Yeah.
I've never had those.
Oh, okay. Then I guess in full-time employment then, or if you've had them at your client.
I have had those.
One thing that I try to keep in mind is, yes, it's a good opportunity to be honest and really take a look at, okay, where might improvements be made when I'm gone? How can we set the team up for further success? But I also don't want to go into an exit interview leaving the other person surprised, or like talking about issues that have not been brought up until, hey, it's my last day, I'm out, your problem.
Yep. Curled up in a ball on the conference room floor going, I never knew all these problems existed.
Yeah. So Kyle, can you kind of talk about what's your approach to exit interviews?
Yeah. And some of them have been like, it's phrased as a final meeting, a final handoff meeting.
Sure.
With the point person on the project, the person you reported to. And I've had them where it like became a evaluation of their people. And that was the toughest one. I just ran away. Don't make me do this. but it's, it's like the kind of the how did it go, and do you have any advice for us before you leave? Things like that. And I'm honest and positive, and I'm not going to brainstorm things just to say something. It's going to be, well, these are the things I noticed, that, one thing that you could do is make sure you're training closer to launch time. Make sure that, when you train somebody, they're going to go use it right away or they're going to lose it. Make sure your team knows where the documentation is. I sent everybody the email. That's going to be important. You're going to have to know that. Just any final things that I can tell them. And then I try to throw in there, just my appreciation for being able to come in and do the work. And I hope we can, if there's another project you need us for, I hope we can come back. But only if you want to go back there. That's
a good point too, Kyle.
Yeah.
Because there are some places that, you're happy to leave and want to leave on a good note, but never ever want to return to, right?
Right. Yeah. In terms of job exit interviews, there I'm honest about what my experience has been and why I'm leaving. And, it's gotta be something that's useful though. Just hacking on people, what are you going to do with that? And so I think it's you're getting away, you're escaping, you're in the boat, and you can just let go of the rope and drift away and never see these people again. But that's really not the time to say stuff that's not going to be of value. I always said that, when I was waiting tables, my last table, I'm going to give them the worst service, and I'm gonna get my revenge for all the bad tables I've had, all the kids tables. No, I still had to give them good service and did all my side work. And
you're my last table, and I'm taking revenge on you today.
Right. Yeah. So sometimes there's an emotional piece to that project, where it was so fun and the people were so fun to work with and it went so well that you're kind of leaving bummed out, and you can, I think those are the hardest ones to leave, but usually you have some kind of a goodbye. You're not always going to get a pizza party. The toughest goodbyes is when you're not sure where to drop your laptop off and no one's around.
That's a challenge too. Yeah.
And it's your last day, and no one really said goodbye. And those are really awkward. And was it just, you fell through the cracks, or was it they were avoiding you? And I hope it's not the avoiding me piece of it. I've had pizza parties and happy hours and stuff like that. I've also had the, where'd everybody go? And it just happened to be a Friday in the summertime when people were taking off and doing fun stuff. So, yeah. The other thing, back to your point, Chad, having that, your tentacles into everything, it's hard to leave. I used to I think I did a presentation about, good consulting. And one of the things was, don't be an octopus. Don't get your fingers in every possible thing you can. Try to focus on why you're there, what you're working on, and be careful about people assigning you tasks or asking you to do tasks that maybe aren't supposed to be giving you work direction and aren't responsible for your time and budget and things like that.
Don't let other people use you as a crutch.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes it just happens that way, but one thing I liked was I knew I had SDG behind me.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
And the customer knew that SDG was behind me. So it was SDG is going to take care of us. It doesn't all fall on this one person. If they leave, then they're gone and we're stuck. And I've seen that with solo contractors where, it's like there's no recourse. There's nothing that can be done. They're just gone. And then it's, hey, can you help us out to finish his stuff up? And sure. But knowing that I have that backing and support and things like that makes it easier. The tough exits can be when you have a ramp up and a ramp down happening at the same time. So you're moving from one customer to the other.
Yeah.
And then like the cutoff wasn't as clean, so you need a little more time. And then you're ramping up, and then having that divided focus can be difficult.
That's a challenge.
60-hour a week. Yeah. And I've had projects where I've had to work like major hours in the last couple months to finish up. And I think that's another thing is having a willingness to do what it's going to take within reason. It's like, okay, no new tasks. That's another thing is like standing up and going, hey, guarding against a bad exit. They're going to, hey, before you go, I'm going to need you to write an entire manual on how this application works. I know we could buy the book for $25, but we want you to write it for us.
Even though the billing amount total will be so much more than $25.
Yeah. And the next day they had a book show up on their desk.
Awesome.
Did you cross out the author at least and put Kyle on there? Or
No, it was a parting gift. How to use SharePoint Designer like a champ or some book like that. Yeah.
There you go.
I will say, what Kyle, when you said with the exit interview conversation, like you talk about what has gone well, to expand on that a little bit, I've been on the giving and receiving end of this, and I found it really useful to have that be an opportunity to share, to talk about your teammates and talk about, okay, what are they really good at? What have they shared with me where they want to grow, to just help echo that to either their manager or to a member of the HR team, just to help guide the focus that, okay, now that there's a void when a person is gone, how do we regroup? And keeping that focus on, look at the really cool talent we have here. Let's make sure that we're continuing to support them and use them in ways that will be good for the company and for those individual people.
Yeah, kind of helping to name your successor.
Yes.
Like, I was playing this role for your organization that was more than just this project or that thing. So, who might be able to help you out with some of these things is Peter. Even though he's booked full time at 15 different clients, I think he's the guy for you.
Well, I think what you're saying, Al, it's nice because you can give that secret feedback that they really want to hear, but with a positive spin on it. Not, tell me all the things that are wrong with my team. It's, here are all the things. Here are all the dreams and aspirations of your team that you as a manager or you as HR can help boost them up and get them going. That's a lot better way to look at it but better way to think about it, because then you're doing good on the way out and giving information that the manager may or may not know, right?
Yeah.
Like they may have thought, oh, well, I just saw them more as sort of a, just kind of a plain old person. And, oh, they really want to do that? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a surprise.
I've seen that happen, and it's just, yes. And as you're leaving, that kind of stuff, like the person who's leaving has nothing to lose by sharing that.
Right.
It's such a low cost, high reward.
Yeah,
for everybody.
I think you can be honest without being too negative. If there are things that, this would have made my time here better. If this was different, I really would have liked for this to happen, or, that kind of like what was missing, or what, diminished your employee experience. So it's like you're actually doing a service for the people you're leaving behind. Because it's like, it's all people. It's in the end, it's all groups of people. And it's like, okay, if I can on the way out, make the lives of all these people just a little bit better, then it's worthwhile, even if it means being honest, and even if it means a tough subject. That's how I look at it. And not like, I do like to say though, that when I leave, I'm going to tip over the CEO's desk and, on my way out and make a big
It looks so
scene.
good in the movies.
It does. Yeah. But that never happens.
Yeah. Well, in the movies, they never show the repercussions of that longer term.
The next day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm getting billed to buy a new desk for the CEO.
Well, and the small town thing, you never know what's going to happen in the future.
Yeah.
I mean, I've had managers show up at new places as managers. Oh, I'm reporting to you again. Well, this might be a problem. Yeah. But if you leave a bad impression, it's a small enough town for me not to want to flip people off on the road.
Yep.
Yeah. Otherwise, I totally would.
Do you understand, though, how cathartic that is?
So
like, just do it
cathartic.
once.
Yeah.
Not as a consultant ever, but like, if you ever go solo again, if you ever just go FTE, just try it once. And it feels nice. It's really nice.
So I guess, Chad, let's say you did have to finish something. You'd had to roll off
Imagine.
in a couple weeks.
Yes.
Are there things that we've talked about that have concerned you, or things that you would want to make sure to remember?
Not really. I mean, some of it is obvious. I think the non-obvious things are like really just highlight the weird stuff, right? Like commodity coding, everybody's going to be able to understand. Oh, everybody can follow simple MVC patterns. Everybody can follow, properly implemented design patterns. As developers, as architects, you want to just like big red circles around the stuff that worries you, right?
Yeah.
The stuff that you constantly have to patch or fix, or, the things that go wrong. I think people can figure out for themselves the things that are going right. But it's that first week that you're gone that somebody has to wake up at night, or somebody has to, handle a situation during the day that's the scariest. And once they get through that, and then the next one, they're fine. So highlight the scary stuff.
I would also say highlighting, it may not be scary, but if you have code, software, tools that at face value seem over-engineered or unintuitive, or just the things that, like, make sure there's an explanation for, here's why this was the best answer to a problem at that point in time.
Yeah, and that's actually a good point too. Like, if you're building a product that you started on 3 Christmases ago, the evolution from start to where handoff is going to look really strange, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that might not be immediately obvious to somebody coming in to support your thing, right? So walking them through the story, tell a story instead of a,
Yeah.
Like, hey, yeah, we thought it was this. We started, I'm sure there's artifacts of the original idea in there somewhere, but this is the way we went with it, and this is what it turned into. But yeah, I mean, I think, if you know who the people are that are going to be taking over for you, have them ride side saddle your last week.
Yep.
And hang out with you. When you see something, when you fix something, bring them along, call them and say, hey, this is stupid. Here's how I fix it. And maybe if you've got a better idea,
yeah,
you're going to look like a hero if you make this not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
So I was just thinking, this sounds a lot like kind of when you start at a client, you're going to go into some of their code, and some of it's going to look really dumb and strange and stuff like that. If you can come in sort of with that imaginary fresh eyes into your own code and get that same look, and like, oh, I remember doing this bit of code here, and this is why we did that.
Yeah. I mean, there are embarrassing corners of everything that I build, or maybe not initially, but like eventually they're like, yes, I just didn't have time to get to this API, right?
Some of those walls are not square.
Yeah. Yep. So watch out for it, and fix it if you can. And actually, I mean, that's a great idea too. Like setting the people up behind you for success, or even to make you look kind of silly, is a great strategy for, I mean, you can make somebody that comes in behind you look like an absolute hero for, one, your stuff not breaking, and two, like fixing repetitive problems that just take time, because that person is going to have time for their first few weeks. They're going to have time, and they're going to have patience from stakeholders.
Yeah,
and so
very true.
That's a huge secret superpower for folks that take over from folks that leave, is that like, man, you've got a lot of rope before things, get really difficult for you.
Do you ever have situations where you're done, things are up and running, but there's a lot of dependencies? Maybe you're using cloud stuff. A lot of things that if they change will need some rework done, some future work done. It's like, okay, if when they come out with this new security thing and deprecate or even get rid of the old one, when TLS 1.0 gets shut down, is your stuff going to stop working? So is it like, are there things that, hey, keep an eye on these things. If this happens, or it could happen, make sure if you're bringing someone else in to add on to this, this is the kind of the skill set you should look for, kind of getting them ready for the future after you leave.
I think you have a responsibility to do your due diligence and like doing a good job and giving either like a heads up or suggestions about what to do for things in the near future.
Right.
Long-term future, no. Because, I could give all the suggestions and directions I want, but there is no indication that the circumstances will be the same in 12 months that they are now. So that's that's introducing more problems than it's helping. But if we're talking, okay, in the next 6 to 8 months, I know we're going to be moving to a different caching third-party tool. Here are the places where that fits into code that I've worked on that you might want to review. that I think is not just a good idea, but recommended to do a little bit of a brain dump of here are things that are on my list that if I was continuing to work here, I would keep top of mind.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think making sure you're not throwing too much on them at the end.
Yeah.
To where like nothing got in because it was like, okay, all right, well, we'll see you later. Thanks for all of that. We'll
and don't
sift through
assume
it.
don't assume that just a verbal brain dump is going to be sufficient. Like get something recorded, something written down. Just don't put the onus on the people who are left on your team to remember a conversation they only had.
And when you're doing that final handoff, like if you have any code or anything like that, that you need to give them, get the receipts. Like get, okay, I sent this out to you. Did you receive it? Yes. Is that everything you need? Have you had a chance to look through it? Are we good? Yes. Okay. Because then you can purge it from yours. You don't want to carry that stuff. You don't want to hang on to it. And it's not yours. You want to give it all to them. But you want to make sure they have it and that they said, hey, yeah, we got it. We're good. We got our code. We know where it is. Because that's usually the year later, 2 years later, that call is usually, do you still have this thing?
Yeah. Do you still have notes from this meeting?
Yeah. Am I still working there? No, I'm not. Therefore, I have no code from your I have no code from your code base.
Yeah. Let me look. Okay, here's the email. I'm going to forward this to you where you said, we got it all. Maybe it's in here. I don't know.
Hey, Peter, do you have any parting thoughts?
I do have parting thoughts. My parting thought is always be finishing. How about that? Set yourself up
Clean
for
as
success.
you go.
Yeah, clean as you go.
Yeah. Don't leave yourself with a big mess at the end. Yeah, that's it. Be the bigger person. If you're not real happy with where you were at, if it was stressful, if it was tough, don't trash the place on your way out. Don't turn over that desk. Don't be rude at that table. Chadwick?
I think I better start documenting a little bit better.
It's never too early to start documenting, but it sometimes is too late.
Yeah. Elle, your final parting thought?
I would say for finishing strong, prioritize the people equal to, if not more than, the code. Yes. People can Google issues with code and software. You can't rely as heavily on Google for interpersonal communication and reputation and morale and
not yet.
Yeah.
Resourcefulness. So.
All right.
I like it.
Well, before we hang up, I just wanted to get it out there that this is Elle's last podcast, and thank you for finishing strong.
Yeah, nice finish.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you to the three of you and our innumerable guests we've had on. It's been awesome. I know you guys are going to keep making the podcast lovely. Like it'll be like I wasn't even here. You're just going to keep going onwards and upwards.
It's going to tank. I'm pretty sure it's done.
I only agree with half of that.
So I'm not going to panic.
Nope.
Deep breaths. It'll be fine. All right.
It's been a blast.
That's good. Say goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye.
Solution Design Group is a digital product consultancy in Minneapolis. Check us out on the web at solutiondesign.com or look for us on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram at Solution Design Group.